Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's meeting. Thanks to everyone for joining us today. I'm just kind of going to give a rundown of Emily's client that she'd been working with at her field placement. So she had been working with a man working in his mid-30s, and he had lost both of his parents at a young age. He's currently homeless, unemployed, and alcohol dependent, and only can live in his shelter until April. Emily asks him regularly if he needs anything from her. She makes sure he's like mentally okay, constantly asking questions, and he'll mumble, but he does like small talk. He likes cooking, and has a girlfriend and has a couple friends that he calls every day. But Emily is thinking about getting him into rehab for his alcohol problem, or counseling services to deal with the grief and loss of his parents. But he also has problems with walking and his feet, so that kind of makes it hard for him to get around. Emily, did I sum that up okay?
So Emily, what are your best hopes for this consultation?
Just for my client to know there's support and that there's offerings, there's accessibility to treatment if he'd like. But mainly to know that, he has a support, which I have been doing all along, without making any judging questions so far in our interactions. But as I stated to you, I have some concerns.
Okay, and I just have one question. How long have you been working with him?
For 3 months.
Okay.
About.
All right. Okay, so Billy, do you want to get us started off?
Oh yeah, Emily, what are your best hopes for the consultation? I'm sorry, should I be asking that again? Like, did you guys hear me the first time that I asked that?
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. So sorry. So Emily, what are your best hopes for the consultation?
That my client feels the support from me and my team, that that they, might be able to recognize areas of improvement, and possibly at least think about, ask about getting help with alcoholism and other things.
Can you say more about your best hopes for the client?
Yes, I would like to see independence, being able to have their own place. I think when you step one foot to the other and you can at least get some basic needs made. When you think about Maslow's hierarchy, we're dealing with somebody who doesn't have shelter, permanent shelter. So they're in a temporary space. So I'm aware of that. And I think that would get them started, being able to get their own place. But
suppose that your client was able to sort of get his own place. I think would be
could you repeat that? I heard suppose if they got their own place, and then what was the rest of that?
what do you think would be different?
I think they would feel, the process of feeling needs actualized by getting the shelter, and then that can perhaps, motivate them to go on, put the next foot forward, like what could I do next? Get a job, and you need to be functioning well when you're working. You have to go there on time, and drinking and having a hangover all day is going to affect that. So I'm just thinking it's going to make someone maybe wonder, why am I not feeling so good?
Is there anything else you think would look a little different?
Perhaps the independence, being able to have family and friends over to their place, as a safety thing. Right now, they don't have that privacy. They'd be able to have more connective, intimate conversations with other support that could possibly encourage him with getting a job and perhaps seeking treatment.
What do you think the client would then notice?
Perhaps feeling more confident that they have their own place, can call people to come over, having more control over their environment, I think is going to be a huge, huge key for them and their success.
What do you think others that are involved with this client will start to notice when those best hopes are realized?
They would see somebody who is, more confident, engaging, being able to talk about having their own place means they're going to place positive value on themselves in their life. They're going to be able to reflect more positively on what's happening for them once they have their own place, and possibly getting a job is the next step.
So on a scale from 1 to 10, where 10 stands for meeting your goal and 1 stands for the complete opposite of that, where do you think you are now?
I'll say a 5.
What tells you that you're at a 5?
That we do not have an apartment, we do not have a job, but we are supposedly been looking for an apartment. There's also things of seeing what benefits can come in to make sure we have enough to pay, and to make sure there's an agreement between that level of income coming in to then also pay that landlord for the apartment. There's a few things that are hopefully going this way, but we don't know for sure when that's going to happen.
Okay, so what tells you that you're not at a 4 instead of a 5?
Just that in our conversations, it does come up. I try not to press it every day, so I don't, because I figure he'll tell me, I got my apartment. But it's definitely in there at least once a week. There is some type of contact with saying, your benefits have not come, or they are coming, which means then you'll be able to get closer spot to your apartment. We're not starting at ground one. We're definitely, on the same page of trying to get an apartment, trying to get benefits matched.
And Emily, I just want to clarify something really quick. Are you saying that there aren't enough resources available at your placement for him in order to achieve these goals?
Not that there's enough resources, just say that, of course, we're looking for them to use benefits. So if they're going to be able to utilize TAMP, they utilize SNAP, but you need to see if there's any way to get, that money to be a little bit more for where they want to live. So I would say that that's the government. It's not necessarily a resource of ours. We have the resources of providing them, support in the meantime.
Okay.
I hope that clarifies some of the things where I answered what you were saying.
Okay, so Emily, where do you want to be with this client, like on the scale that we talked about before?
Where I would like to be right now?
Mm-hmm. Or just the end goal, I guess. Sorry.
At the end goal?
Yeah, I'm not really sure what this question's asking.
I mean, I'm more comfortable being at a 7, meaning like we have the place by next month, like we've secured. So like this week, we're ending this week of February. It'd be nice to say, okay, we're gonna have enough to sign a contract, make a down payment so that we know, you know, by at least April 1st, I'll feel more comfortable at the end of the week if I had everyone was placed within a month's time.
Okay. So I know you said that's what it would look like at a 7, right?
A 7 would be ideal for me right now.
Okay.
Just showing that we were moving a little closer to our goals.
So what would an 8 be?
An 8 would be that the landlord has, you know, accepted a down payment, and we would, you know, eventually be thinking about finalizing the contract.
So Emily, you've talked about some of the hurdles. Obviously, you know, what are you already doing that is on track for this client?
What am I doing that's on track?
Yeah, what are you guys already? What's your team already, or you already doing that's on track for him?
Just on a consistent basis for the last 3 months, checking in with the case management. The case manager is not myself, that's somebody else, and they are checking in and saying these are the benefits that are available, or here is another application to get additional funds. We have tried to exhaust everything possible for them. It's just, I think my client only wants to stay in this particular town, so we're not looking into other, you know, let's say less expensive places. Again, trying to meet our client where they're at. I think they're confident that they'll be able to get a place. It's just that, you know, we're running out of time.
Oh, I'm sorry. How are you being trauma informed and practicing with him?
By asking, you know, is there anything, always having that approach, if there's anything we can help him with, how is he feeling, you know, let him direct our conversation, you know, generally by opening it up first, you know, just saying, how are you doing? How are things going? How can we support you? Do you need anything in any way? You know, have there been any struggles? Is there anything I can help you with? And then ultimately just being a listening ear. My client likes to just tell jokes, so just wants me to kind of laugh and keep it easy. And, you know, so we're still in that beginning stages of trust too.
Is there anything else that you could name that you're doing that would identify as you being on track with the client?
That the client has not backed off, still approachable. Our last session, they were more open than ever. A lot of the times they're comfortable with just talking with the other people around, but we're able to come and just talk to me, you know, privately, and, you know, spend some time just talking a little bit, you know, not poking the bear quite, but at least showing that I can ask some more serious questions, because we haven't had too many times to talk. You know, at a lengthier time versus, you know, are you doing okay? Yep. Do you need anything? Nope. You know, we were able to have a longer conversation. So I think because one of their friends who has distracted them is gone, I think now we can not worry so much about that other friend.
So it sounds like you feel like you're building a real rapport with the client.
Yeah, so far it feels like we're headed in the right direction. It's still, you know, in beginning stages. And, you know, asking you guys for the support of kind of like what I can do next.
Absolutely.
So that sounds good. What would you say the client is already doing that's on track?
just being involved by attending the case management meetings. That's, again, another person. Engaging in talking about, getting more benefits or willing to look at other places, to live. I don't personally, give them their benefits or get involved with that aspect of it, but I know that they've been approachable and attend those appointments as needed and sign applications or, do what's supposed to be done.
Is there anything else that you've noticed the clients doing that keeps them on track?
I mean, their general behavior and compliance, they're getting along with everyone else in the house. If they were really wanting to give themselves a hard time and the rest of us a hard time, they would, make things unpleasant by either breaking rules or, not listening, causing fights. So far, pretty good disposition as far as, someone you can work with.
So what do you think the next small step is?
I guess, whether it's appropriate or not would just be, for me, I'm interested in seeing if, their awareness and getting help with the alcoholism. That's, my main thing, but I don't know how to motivate them. So whether that's some type of intervention or asking if they would take an alcohol assessment test, the CAGE 4 or 5 is what's a general one that comes to mind. Whereas if you went into a hospital with, say, your foot was broken, or you said, I've been feeling down lately, and you take this other quiz that's within the assessment, and it'll say, does anyone ever confront about you drinking? Has everyone said, have you ever noticed that you have to drink first thing in the morning? It would be a natural process for them to see. So that would be, I guess, where I would think of it as is, saying doing a general psychosocial assessment with them that included an alcohol or substance related questionnaire.
And you did kind of touch on this already, but how will taking assessment be helpful?
You kind of fog out a bit, so I don't hear you.
Oh, sorry about that. But so how will taking that assessment be helpful?
I think it'll be coming from that form versus me directly asking. It'll be something that I can say, this is of the compliance for your going on to getting your apartment, or this is out of compliance for getting your benefits. And, our treatment here, are you willing to participate in one of our intake assessments? Because I don't know if they've done an intake assessment in the last year or so. And, we could have that in there. And then they could see that their score, they might reflect on a high score if they get a high score.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add, or anything else that you think would be helpful?
I guess having that conversation of how would you best like to be confronted? What would be the best way to approach you if we knew we were feeling kind of uncomfortable, we felt you had a problem? And I think that would help me to be, more trauma informed and helpful than just, coming right out. Maybe he, for example, would like me to tell his mother, her sister to tell him, I'm trying to think of some people's way of talking. Maybe they wouldn't want me directly saying it. Maybe they'd want me to forward on to a professional, like a doctor, if they saw the general practitioner. I could say, I took this test with you, and now I'm sending it to your general practitioner to go over it with you. And that way they could get a professional referral that way, is an idea I'm coming up with.
Yeah, that sounds like a really great idea to me. And it sounds like you're set up with your next steps to try to, like get him on his feet into his own place, get help for his alcohol issues, and maybe even like a grief counseling service. So I'm going to ask everyone to turn their cameras off so we can go into the wonderment phase. Okay, and if anyone wants to um, state a question or a phrase, you're welcome to go ahead.
So I wonder what specifically the goals of the client themselves, like what are his goals? I mean, I know that we've talked a lot about the goals that Emily has come up with him in session, but it seems like there's been a lot of like challenges. So I'm just curious if like what his goals were coming in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Like his own individual goals.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else?
I wonder what the client hopes to work on first.
Okay, so do you guys want to turn your camera off again so we can go into the compliment phase?
Yeah, and if you don't mind, I would like to start.
Okay, sure.
So I would just start by saying, Emily, I have a lot of appreciation for the extra thought that you're really putting into trying to help this client. I think most people, and I don't want to say at your level, but I think most people in your situation, considering that you're, not a licensed social worker now, may not put as much thought into trying to get this gentleman the help that he needs. So I have a lot of appreciation for how you're willing to go the extra mile to get him the help that he needs.
Thank you.
I'm very impressed with how much you care about the client's well-being and want him to succeed in whichever area we focus on first.
Thank you, Leanne.
I admire how you have perseverance with the client, and I know a lot of interns in your shoes would probably just take it as far as trying to have a conversation with them. And it doesn't seem like he's giving you that much deep conversation in return, but it's still getting somewhere, and this is the first stages. So I admire that you noticed that and want to keep working with him.
Thank you, Shelby.
I admire that you've put so much thought into what you can do to best serve him.
Thank you,
Emily,
Elise.
I'm impressed. Sorry, Emily, I'm impressed by your level of passion and persistence for helping the client and finding solutions.
Great, thanks guys.
Thanks, Sarah.
I just want to take a little bit to debrief. So Emily, how was this talking to us today about this situation that you're experiencing at Field?
I think it just helped me to reflect on, is this more of like my goal for them? Is it really their goal? And how we really do need to, work on being open, being willing to discuss if he wants any help. I know they know how to come to us and ask for help, but it would just be nice with him being in our care so long if, you know, we could get him working on these goals.
Right. And for the rest of the group, has this worked for you today? Was this okay for you, or was there anything you thought we could improve on?
I felt comfortable. I think I was more focused on Emily and honestly her client and understanding where she was coming from. So I was trying to jot a few things down, but I felt like overall today, as a group, it worked. I felt everybody made me feel comfortable in the most part. And not that it was about me, but I'm just saying as being a group member. And just everybody was respectful. And I think we're definitely here to just support Emily and her client. And I think that's pretty powerful stuff. When we, even though we're getting together under a kind of a mock situation, I think the group dynamics can be very powerful and an advantage for somebody really needing help. This is a great example of it.
Yeah, I agree with you, Billy.
Yes, I definitely felt that support, and I felt like everyone added their level of sophistication as far as, like, you know, taking this seriously and, you know, being in tune with what was going on here, recognizing my vulnerability and my client's vulnerability.
Yeah, I personally felt that like this was our first one, like our first case, and like looking at the rest, it's like, okay, if we talk about this as a group, they won't seem as like out of reach of handling. So I think it's going to be helpful to do this. All right, and we can stop there.